Just like children and brothers we would fight. One of us was wrong and the other one was right. Left to our own, there'd be another bloody eye. The bigger one would win and the smaller one would cry. Mom would sit us down and she'd teach us about love, family, and we'd listen a little. And she'd ask us to meet in the middle. War after war and a crisis every day. Corporations bought the land and we all moved away. Scattered to the corners of the country we had played. Allegiance every morning with our hands over our chest. I'm scratching at a screen while Daddy's laying in a room. We're all dancing to some dogmatic riddle, and we're trying to make ends meet in the middle. Yeah, yeah. I see 'em waving their signs. We're all trying to get out of this storm. I was born in the middle of this line where no one's getting closer to the door. 'Cause the middle is not the middle anymore. Daddy passed his debt and taxes on to the estate. Bridges crumbling, workers grumbling, damned inflation rate. The South is seeing red, the North, the coast, and others blue. Most of us are sure that neither one knows what to do. I'd sit down at the table if my mother was still here. Maybe she could mend my eyes, open up my ears. Maybe if I listened half as much as I want to fight, I'd find a way to get up off this floor. 'Cause the middle is not the middle. No, the middle is not the middle. Yeah, the middle is not the middle anymore. Yeah. All right, welcome to this month's June's song release. We got some people out there, so if you want to drop a comment at any point, feel free to type it in. We'll give that a listen. We got a couple announcements here before we jump into this month's song. So first off, thank you to all of my patrons for bringing this song into the world this month. You should have gotten in the mail your I'm a Patron stickers. If you haven't, then please message me, because they all went out in the mail a week and a half ago. It's possible they could have gotten lost, but you should have those in your inbox. And then secondly, I'm playing a show next month, July 16th, from 1 to 3 p.m. at Henmick Farm and Brewery. It's right here in Delaware, Ohio. So if you're in Central Ohio, it's a great place. It's kid-friendly. Fantastic space, and this is actually their 1-year anniversary. So I kick things off at 1 p.m. and there'll be music all throughout the evening. Fox and Hounds are going on right after me. They're a fantastic group. So the 16th, July 16th, come on out. All right, and now I'd like to introduce to you my special guest for the evening, Lisa Cave.
Hey.
Hey, Lisa. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you.
Yeah.
You have been one of the people that has been an inspiration for me as a musician for how much you love music and understand the nature and the plight of the local artists.
Yeah,
you know,
for
the
sure.
people that are making.
It's a special kind of struggle, but yeah, I'm here to help in any way that I can.
Yes.
So yeah, I've been lucky to work with independent musicians in Columbus for my entire career. So and in Central Ohio, and yeah, we've got such an incredible music community, and I try to be involved in every way that I can, just because I believe in what our community has to offer. I have been all over the country at different music events, been involved in different projects, and I always come back thinking, they had nothing on us, on our musicians, on our artists. So love really being a part of that community and trying to help in any way that I can.
Well, and that is encouraging.
Yeah.
Because as you know, most people in the music industry are not there to encourage and cheer you on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But it's so important because, you're doing such incredible work, and I love watching the artists that I've worked with for a while just continue to evolve and grow and adapt and, try out new things. And I think you're the epitome of, trying new things as far as with your music and how you reach your audience. I love your Patreon account and, how you make it really special for your followers each month, and to share something new and share something that's really personal to you to just a really core group of really true fans.
That's right. That's all of you guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, thank you for supporting.
Yeah, so we have actually, this song I'm really excited to share this with you guys. It features a couple fantastic Central Ohio musicians, did some work out of Orange Studio for this one. So why don't we jump in, we'll give this tune a listen, and then and we'll talk more.
Awesome.
Okay, so this month's song, Turn This Thing Up. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. What we ain't, what we lost, what we will.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was so much fun to work on.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I want to do a couple quick thanks. One is to Brian Jester, who I don't know that I would have recorded this song this year if it wasn't for him. He played drums on this tune, really laid the foundation, and really started with him saying, dude, send me something. Just send me some tracks. I want to play drums.
Sometimes you need just a little push.
Yeah, and this was a song where I really needed a live drummer, but I want to pay people, and I like to pay them well for their time,
Right.
But Brian was like, dude, I'm bored. Send me tracks. And I was like,
awesome.
Okay, dude, I will totally do that. But I always heard sax on this song too, and so I've been trying to get Terrence Farmer on a recording for a while.
Awesome.
He's so good.
Yeah. And I think it adds something a little bit unexpected to it too.
Oh yeah?
They have sax for a style of, that's your music. You not necessarily think sax for this, but it really turns it into a party, I think. So, yeah.
Well, a lot of that's Terrence too.
Yeah.
He asked for some direction, this, that, and the other thing, and I was like, man, really just be you.
Just do it. Yeah.
So he worked with Brandon over at Orange Studio,
Yeah.
and gosh, when they sent me those tracks, I was like,
yeah, that's an amazing space too.
Yeah.
We're so lucky to have that too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I love it. I love how it started, that count off. I love that. It just kind of adds this energy to it. You're like, oh, it's like this anticipation that it's about to really pop off. So
yeah.
I love how it started.
All right, we got a couple people on with us as well. Bim is out there. Hey, Bim.
Hey.
He said very cool. He digs the song.
Nice.
And apparently my son is also watching.
Yes.
He says,
Hey.
hi, Daddy. So, hey, bud. Good to see you, man.
Hi.
So, I don't know how many of you actually read the story in the description, but this song was spawned, or I guess sparked by, an actual event of my dad for the first time, I don't know, it felt like a little bit of an introduction into manhood, hey, come hang out with your dad all night and listen to records, And we listened to it on the very same stereo. In fact, I'll turn the little camera here. This is the stereo. It's now in my studio. My dad
That's a beauty too.
gifted it to me.
I love that old kind of walnut. You don't see that much anymore.
No. And what's great is it's all different brands, but apparently that was the thing at the time.
Yeah.
So they all have this matching walnut veneer,
Classy.
For sure. So that's kind of special that we got to listen to the song on the actual stereo.
Absolutely.
That sparked the whole thing.
Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I loved it. And just thinking about music and how it can really touch you and take you back to a time. One of my favorite lyrics in it is "The sound is alive, I'm feeling again." I'm yes, the songs that just really touch you and take you back to a moment in time, and re-energize you and make you feel a certain way. And whether that way is happy or sad or melancholy or excited or just just this memory that it just instantly taps into, for better or worse sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But that how music is like a time machine, and it can really just transport you to another time, another moment in your life, and have such a huge impact. So
absolutely. And I think that was the thing, as a 13-year-old kid that I saw in my dad that night, because the stories, he's sharing stories about his life, and then also the artists that wrote the records, and those things would intertwine, the things that were happening in society at the time, and the way that those records left an imprint on him. And it was I got to go a Wayback Machine in my dad's brain. It unlocked things that just don't normally come up. I think I saw the power of that, and that's part of what just imprinted on me. That was this is what I want to do.
Sure.
I want to create a thing that can be this for other people.
Right, to move somebody like that and create a story for someone. So that's very cool.
Yeah. So we were talking a little bit before we started rolling about vinyl specifically, and how the listening experience is different on vinyl versus certainly the whole streaming aspect that we have now.
I think we've lost a bit of that magic in vinyl, in the last 10, 20 years since the advent of digital music. And for a long time, I I never really thought about vinyl. I'm like, I've got all my music right here in my pocket. You know, I don't need vinyl. And now it's kind of come full circle where I think that, you know, it's something that I want to start, you know, collecting and kind of leaving for, you know, my kids to discover music through me. And then also I think, you know, we're seeing in the last few years especially, we were all so separated for so long. It's so, you know, we had no choice but to be online and tied to, you know, a computer or a phone. That's how we interacted. I think there is like this renaissance back toward, you know, more tangible art that you can hold and you can, you know, that's more permanent and you own and it's physical and you know you can see it and feel it, and you know, just kind of slowing things down. And vinyl is a slow process of listening to music. You know, you can pull up a playlist and just let it ride, but vinyl, you know, like you have to pick it out. You have to be very gentle with it. You have to it's an entire process, and you can't just, you know, you can skip to the other songs, but you know that's part of the process too. So
sure.
And then, you know, you have to flip it at some point. So it's really more active listening too, and I think that's important too. You know, to really listen to the music, listen to the art, listen to the words, and let it, you know, kind of wash over you instead of just it being, you know, necessarily background noise. Yeah, so getting this stereo the last fall and starting to build my own vinyl collection. My dad gave me a box of records. Yeah. Some were worse for wear than others, and others are, you know, are great. But starting to build my own now, one of the things that I've noticed it forces me to do, even as someone who makes music for a living, is there's that piece in our brain where when something happens and we're like, I'm not completely into this, we have infinite options today, right? So the moment that gets triggered that I'm not into this, there's something internal that's like, well, okay, turn the channel, go to the next thing, find a new playlist, pick, you know, and most of the time it's literally just this. You're just like, it's right in your hand, right? But vinyl, like the fact that if I'm not immediately into this, well, I know that I've got to get up. I've got to walk over gently over to the record player. At best, I have to lift up the arm and then find the next, you know. So I'm willing to give it 5 or 10 more seconds, you know, to see if I'm really not still into this. And it's been really good for me inside to have something that checks that part of me that can just say like, if you lose me for 3 seconds, then I'm completely gone. Because I can say that it actually is a more satisfying listening experience going through the pieces where I'm like, I'm not really into this. Because every once in a while, the artist surprises you and you're like, whoa, they like totally brought this around. And now I'm way into it. But I would have never given it the time to even get there to discover that, you know? Yeah, and I think a lot of times too, I like being challenged by art. Okay, so I'm not into this. Why am I not into this? What is it that I don't like sit with the question. You know, is it like, you know, is it the time signature? Is it the instrumentation? Is it the vocal? You know, the voice, you know, so why don't I like it? And like, is that a me thing? Is that a them thing? Is that like have nothing to do with anything at all? And also giving yourself, you know, time to discover things, because that's the way an album goes. You know, they're not all hits, but you know, sometimes there are some really deep cuts in there. Like, I bought this record for my one favorite song, but on the other side discovered like this song totally blows that one away. Had no idea it existed. So, you know, I think that we've lost a bit of the discovery process too in having, you know, Spotify playlists that just kind of feed you music based on what, you know, the AI thinks that you want to hear. It doesn't give you a chance to really discover anything new or a new sound or something that's a different style than what you typically dig. So, for sure. Yeah. Well, in an album, I wrote a blog post years ago that listening to an album is more like having a meal, like a multi-course meal. Yeah. You know, where like everything's meant to go with itself. Right. Whereas if you had just jumped in and ate like the third course, well, you didn't have what came before, and then you wouldn't have what came after, and so the whole experience is actually like lesser. Right. And it might not be bad in and of itself, but it might not also actually be that enjoyable in and of itself, but taken as a whole. And that's one of the things that I think good artists do really well is when they curate an album, right? It's not all ice cream. Right.
right? Because that's you save that, right? And it's also not all meat, right? Like you balance these flavors and these spices, and a great album and leaves you like really satisfied in a fullness of ways that any one single song just can't do.
Right. Yeah, you want it to create like this whole storyline kind of thing, and this magic that all clearly fits together. And what I think is cool, just kind of revisiting some of the albums that I can remember listening to in my childhood, is that exactly what's coming next, and you're kind of anticipating the next song. Like you don't get that in like a Spotify playlist where you're kind of jumping around. That's
true.
Like this song fits into the next song, and it has to be like that. That's how it has to exist in your brain, as the vinyl aspect of it, because it just went in order, and it wasn't really, I mean, obviously it was within your control, but it really wasn't either. The record player's all the way over there, you just let it ride.
For sure.
You just like let it go and just like absorb the whole thing. So yeah, I think there's probably a lot of science, a lot of thought that goes into, or at least used to go into, like, what order are we putting these songs in? What makes sense? What feeds the story and keeps you moving forward. So yeah, I don't know if that exists much anymore. If it's just single after single after single, it doesn't matter.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Sure. Yeah, and then they crossfade.
Right.
Like that song's not even over, and the next one starts. Yeah. You mentioned something, and I'd love to circle back to it and dig into it a little bit more. The idea of you're curating essentially a library of records for your kids. Yeah. Tell me a little more about that.
Yeah, so I've really just started that, and it's really just been in the last couple of years that I've thought, okay, what are the albums that, kind of defined me, through different points in my life? What are the things that I feel like they need to hear? Like, this is, a canon of music that you have to hear, just, music history kind of thing. What do you have to hear kind of albums? And kind of looking back at, my own album discovery, it was my mom's record collection that, like, I found when I was a kid, and the things that resonated with me there too. She didn't have a huge record collection, but, like, she had some gems in there, like Elton John and like Big Brother and the Holding Company, and she had like some solid stuff in there. And then she would, when she was cleaning the house, she'd listen to like old country music, so lots of Merle Haggard, and, stuff like that. So yeah, she had a really interesting, variety of records there. But looking at that and how that kind of shaped, my musical preferences, and then different stages of my life when I discovered different chunks of music. Like growing up, I would babysit, and I babysat for a lot of artists and musicians, weirdly, and their record collections were amazing. That was my favorite part, is like, when the kids went to bed and I had a few hours before the parents got home, just like digging into their collection. And I had no idea what I was looking at for the most part. I was like, a lot of it was going by what the cover looked like. This looks interesting, let's see what this is. But discovering like Velvet Underground and some like real deep Bowie and like Lou Reed and like some classical stuff and Elvis Costello and stuff that I never would have heard at home and wasn't necessarily hearing very much on the radio either, because it was real alternative at that point. So and discovering that and how that shaped my musical taste. So how important that is at different phases to discover new things. And I'm just starting to like connect with my kids on that kind of music too. Like, we'll be listening to a playlist, or we'll be listening in the car, and they'll be like, who was that? And then they'll text it to a friend. I'm like, yes. Like trying to infiltrate, like 12-year-old girl playlist. Trying every angle here, but but like just trying to connect with them on music, and the things that they like and the things that they gravitate toward, and then also just sharing that love with each other. And I've discovered new music from my kids too, artists that I'd never heard of and that they turned me on to. So I think it's really this symbiotic relationship that can be really rewarding. So yeah, I'm really excited about kind of developing that more, and kind of sharing that with them. And they have not, I don't have the turntable set up at the new place, so like they have not had the experience of like, this is a record and this is how you do it, and also the terror of scratching it, like be careful.
Right.
So yeah, got to go through vinyl safety.
Vinyl safety school. Yeah, the kids know if if I'm listening to a record and I'm like, walk. Exactly. We're on the third floor, right? So like everything's a little wobbly up here. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, but it's it's such an important part of the listening, like truly listening process, rather than just like, headphones in, it's on repeat and a playlist. Nobody's
while I'm
paying attention
doing
to
something
exactly.
else. Yeah.
You don't even exactly know who you're listening to at that point. So
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. I love that. And I love so many things about that. Both creating a portrait of yourself for your kids to get to know you better by the music that you love. And then also having that be part of the communication between you and your kids. It's really encouraging.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, and especially, we can look back at artists throughout time and how, they've been like these change makers and like these rule breaker kind of artists. Growing up, David Bowie was one of my favorite artists because he was constantly pushing the envelope and not what you were expecting, and androgynous and challenging and like at a time when that wasn't really accepted. So looking back at that and how important that's been. So yeah, I love sharing new music with my kids. I love going on like extended road trips and be like, okay, who are we gonna listen to today? Like, all right, we're listening to Missy Elliott today. We're just like throw on a Missy Elliott playlist, and now you're getting a Missy Elliott education. Now we're gonna like, have you ever heard of Cyndi Lauper? And like, like all of these artists that they just were way before their time and they would never listen to otherwise. So,
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I love that. We've got a couple comments on here. Okay, yeah. So Bim's on here. He brings up the point that back when we were talking about vinyl, that vinyl has higher fidelity on the outsides.
Yeah.
So it makes choosing the first and last song on each side important for several reasons. Yeah.
Interesting.
The whole mastering process to
that's a science.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. So yeah, right on, man.
But I think that's an important aspect of it too, is just, the quality of audio. I think, so I just recently switched to Qobuz, Qobuz, instead of Spotify, just because it isn't as compressed.
Okay.
Digital music isn't as compressed. So, and I've never really thought about that, but if anybody should be listening to like higher quality digital music, it should be me. So like, switching over to that, and it helps that they pay artists more. It's not as popular, but I'm all about paying artists more. So, but just the realization that that's one level. We've got Spotify at this level, and then like that better audio quality streaming services at this level, and then you've got vinyl and like physical, and how much different that sounds when you've got like a killer speaker setup, and it's just like all around you, and it's you can feel it in your chest, and it's not as digitized and compressed and computerized sounding. I think that we've lost a lot of music, and I think that can be evident too when you listen to music with like better headphones or something like that, and you're like, oh wow, I didn't even hear this instrument before.
100%.
Yeah, so
Absolutely.
I think we've lost a lot of the magic in music from only consuming it digitally.
Yeah, it breaks my heart, all these like monophonic Bluetooth speakers that everyone's listening to music on, and of course they got it cranked up to 100.
Right.
So it's like it's clipping. This is like
Right. Yeah, that's real tinny sounding.
Yeah, right. Oh,
yeah.
just brutal.
It's rough.
Brutal.
Yeah, doesn't have to be like that.
We got another one on here. Jordan Allison said, let's see what he said. With the idea that an album is a full course meal, if this track were part of an album, what course would this song be?
That's a good question.
Oh, man. Yeah, if I were to put this on an album, it would definitely be toward the beginning or toward that like halfway point, like where you flip it over,
right?
And you're like, you get reinvigorated by that first song on the second side. I think that's probably where.
Yeah, I can see that too, because it can't be right at the beginning, because it's a little bit of a reflection on music history past, and our music, what's moved us in the past, and kind of looking ahead to the future too. So yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. And he asked, what might be the flavor of the next course?
Yeah.
Gosh, yeah, how do you follow this?
Yeah.
These are the questions that drive artists crazy, Jordan.
Right.
At least if you had like, a bunch of songs that you're already like, then it becomes like a puzzle piece is that you're putting together for an album. But to just think what would come after this. Yeah, I don't know. Energy wise, I mean, I can go up a little bit, but it would probably be something that would come down.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
And maybe kind of, taking a look at, what's moving you now, the kind of music that's moving you now, and how that kind of factors into the history of your musical journey too. So yeah. That's an interesting concept to like write around. Yeah.
I got one more on here. This is Carrie Davidson. Hey neighbor. She says, love the idea of communicating with our kids through music and how you weave your childhood into music. Yeah. Absolutely.
That's a great point too. Yeah. How so much of your story is wrapped up in your music too.
Yeah, that is, honestly, that's something I'm going to take away from tonight. Because I had mentioned, again, before we got started, that like I buy books specifically knowing like, okay, when my kids are, 13, like this is a great read, or when they, become young adults, like these are awesome books. I want them to read these. But I just haven't thought of my music collection that way.
Right.
So even thinking about the vinyl that I buy now and how that can become part of the dialogue with my kids, about like whether that's my story or, music plays an important part in culture, which plays an important part in history, right? So like, why did this album matter, right? Like why did this artist's voice resonate at the time that it did?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I think you can, create a lot of different paths as far as the music that you share and why you're sharing it, and I think that can create a lot of interesting conversations, especially with kids, that are inquisitive and curious, and is sometimes a little harsh on older music, but like seriously, like this was what was cool. This was rap music back in my day.
For sure.
So like this is how this evolved. It started like this, and this now we've got this, and looking at music as an evolution. Not just culturally but personally too. So
yeah, which is, I had an epiphany. I just turned 40 this year. And this was last summer. I was talking with a guy here in Delaware. We were just at an outdoor art show, and he plays music, and we've known each other in town. He's like in his late 60s now. And I was just asking him questions about like what it was like, to like play music back in the 70s and the 80s and stuff. And he shared a story, and it's an idea that no one had ever explained to me. I'd never heard it communicated, but it makes so much sense, is that in the 60s, when live music would come, that was really the only time that they got to hear high fidelity music. Most of them were listening to vinyl, but they're listening to it on like those all-in-one deals. It's got like the little 4-inch speaker built into it, on a little crappy plastic arm. Right. Most of these kids didn't have hi-fis in their home. They didn't have high fidelity sound systems. So when live music would come, it'd come with the big speakers, and they'd get to feel the kick drum, and they'd get the bass would move their chest. And he was explaining this to me, and I could see it in his eyes that it was like, that was the first time in their life that they felt music. And that's why concerts were such a social event, because it was completely different than any experience they could have with music anywhere else in their life.
It makes it more of a physical connection in addition to like the emotional connection to it too. Right. Neat.
But now, but it's like, that's not my experience, right? Like, I grew up with, certainly this sound system, and then subwoofers, and like feeling music was just a part of music, right? The idea that it would then be different. And actually, in a lot of cases, I'm sure you relate to this, the live performance, the sound can actually be a step down. Like you're like, I know this song and it sounds so good, I want to hear it, and it's not the artist's fault, but it's just like everything it can actually almost be like too much sound a lot of times live.
Yeah.
So it's just a really eye-opening that like, wow, this just a generation past. Like their whole physical interaction with music was completely different.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that'd be interesting to look at, through the generations and through advances in technology, how it helped and how it hurt the experience of music, listening to music at home versus listening to music live, and how that's changed over the years, and how that shapes, the audience, how that shapes fans, how that shapes music, lovers.
Sounds like that could be a college course.
Yeah, it could be. Seriously, yeah.
If only there was someone who taught at a college around here.
I can't do anything else. No more ideas.
Oh. Yeah. So, if you would,
yeah,
I would just tell a little bit about what it is that you do.
Yeah.
Offer into the Columbus music scene.
Sure. So I spent most of my career as a booking agent. We worked with a lot of bands in Columbus, and that was really rewarding, but we worked with a lot of cover bands for the most part. We didn't work a lot with original music, and I really wanted to work with original musicians more. So a few years ago, I started my own things with the intention of working more with the original music scene in Central Ohio, because we have an incredible original music scene, and I didn't feel like I was really helping with that at all. So I own a sync licensing agency, so I pitch original music to TV shows and movies and video games and things like that for placement there. I have a booking agency that mostly focuses on original music now. I do some management services. I do some consulting. I teach music entrepreneurship at Capital. I'm getting ready to kind of relaunch my business under a new name and adding in some new services there too, just based on what I feel like, musicians need in our community. Just trying to help out a little bit more in a few different tiny little ways that hopefully will make a difference to artists. So, yeah.
Well, I can say you probably don't see this, but when I talk with other folks down in the Columbus music scene and your name comes up, people's faces light up.
Aww, that means so much to me.
It does. It does.
Well, and it just, I just love the music scene so much in Columbus, and I see how hard everybody is working, and I believe in it so much, and I just want to try to help that in any way that I can, because it can be a real struggle as an independent artist, so every little bit that you can get to help in, whatever aspect can really move the needle sometimes, even just to make it a little bit less cumbersome or more enjoyable or a little bit more profitable, so yeah, I believe in the original music scene in Central Ohio so much. We're very lucky. So yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. This has been so much fun.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And thank each of you that logged in tonight online. And thank you so much to my patrons for all your support over these last 5 years. This song would have never been brought out into the world. I may have written it, but no one would ever hear it if it wasn't for you. So thank you so much for your support and your generosity. And thanks to all the new folks that joined in tonight. Hope you enjoyed the tune. If you've got any questions, feel free to message me. With that, I guess we'll sign off.
Cool.
So,
thank you.
Thanks, Lisa.
Good night.